Hey, welcome back to Campus Can's Senior Bowl roster preview. Today, we're talking defense. Just a reminder that Campus Can will be on site in Mobile for Senior Bowl week. We're excited to see everybody there, analysts, content creators, everybody. And then also, we want to make a note. Since our last recording, high school teammates Malik Cunningham and Grant DeBose will be committing to the Senior Bowl. And I do want to say Malik Cunningham is turning turncoat on the East West Shrine Bowl. That's right. He was supposed to go there. Now he's going to the Senior Bowl. Barnabas, do you have anything to say about Malik Cunningham or Grant DeBose?
Well, it'll be interesting. They're big college producers, and we'll see how NFL scouts view them. Right now, I don't have a super lot of work done on them because I didn't know they were going to be coming. But it'll be interesting how they fit into NFL coaching and systems.
I did think it was interesting that Grant was in the portal for a while. There was no buzz about him in the portal. Goes back to school, then it's a surprise. I'm going to the Senior Bowl, all over the place, man. But I like a mystery. This is a fun little background narrative we have to discover for ourselves. But anyway, in the process of preparing for this week, we want to share with you guys some of the players that we're most excited to cover. Just not saying these guys are the best or the most touted, the most well known. We just believe they have a great opportunity to gain some exposure and really show scouts what they got. That's why we're highlighting some small school guys and just some guys with some fun names too. Anyway, let's start off with the D line position.
Yeah, so I'll start first. I got Zach Pickens from South Carolina. Um, as our own very own Chris Moxley said, five-star talent. Maybe didn't have the results that he wanted in college, but a big guy. He was originally recruited as a defensive end. Put on about 16 pounds in college and played anywhere from 1-0 tech all the way up to 5 tech at times. So he needs to work on improving his shooting, his hands before his feet. I know that's something that Craig Rowe has been pushing a little bit on Twitter recently. But there was a lot of improvement his last year in college as opposed to his previous years. So really excited to see what NFL defensive line coach can do for him. He put up, I think, his best tape against Kentucky. He put up a lot of good stuff. He was really
Hey, go Cats, baby!
Yeah, I mean, he was showing up. He got a sack in there even from the interior. He's got a decent amount of push here, and so I think his strengths are really his hand leverage, right? He can often shed at will, and he pushes these interior guys around a lot. And so I was really impressed with that. And by that same token, he's kind of slippery. Like, a lot of times linemen can latch onto the side of a defensive tackle, especially someone who's like one single gapping. And so when offensive linemen are engaged with him from the side, he doesn't really get blocked. He just kind of slips through it. And so that was impressive. And obviously I mentioned the versatility. He lined up anywhere from 0 to 5 tech. I think he could, play a little bit of 5 tech. I think he probably fits more to 3 tech and at the next level, but definitely will be interesting to see. Weaknesses, I think he needs to work on just getting used to his body. Like I said, he gained probably 15 or so pounds, maybe more, up to 20 in college. And so that's a pretty big change, even for a big guy like that. And so I think once he gets used to his body a little bit, he'll be a little bit more used to firing off a little bit. I saw some pursuit angles that were a little rough just because he didn't, his speed wasn't up to par, which, defensive linemen aren't really running down running backs from the behind. So it'll be interesting to see how those physical tools are used at the next level. His limited toolbox is slightly concerning, which is why I'm very interested to see how NFL coaching does for him, because if he can learn some more pass rush moves and just not simply try to bowl in a China shop type rush just in the middle with no plan, I think if he has a plan from the start, then he might find a little more success and a little more production.
Now, earlier you mentioned 3 tech and 5 tech. Just for people that don't know in the audience, could you tell us what that terminology is?
Sure. Yeah. So 3 tech, 5 tech are all basically just pointing to gaps on the offensive line. So a 0 tech is just your head up nose tackle. He's lined up helmet to helmet with a center. And each gap goes out from there, where it's 1 tech is in the gap, and then all the way out to 5 tech, which is in the gap between the tackle and the tight end, which is often used in 3-4 defenses. Although many NFL defenses are currently moving towards even fronts. Obviously nickel is actually the most used package in the NFL across the league. And so everyone's mixing up fronts, but generally the gap number goes 1 from between the center and the guard, to 3 between the guard and the tackle, and 5 between the tackle and the tight end, and so on.
All right, let's get on to Cameron Young, D lineman from Mississippi State. There he is. That's the guy. Anyway, 6'3", 315, a little bit bigger here. I think he has a really good first step, play strength, great motor skills. I really want to talk about his weaknesses, though. I think he just failed to get to get guys' hands off of him. Once guys latched onto him, he definitely struggled to get him off. Now, the tape I watched was Alabama, was LSU, so I really wasn't watching the lower competition. But I think he failed to rise up to stronger competition. He just didn't seem to be much of an impact. A very straight line guy, but didn't really see him winning too much at the line. So I'm very interested to see what he looks like with obviously a brand new lineup and a lot of other guys to play with here. But I was pretty underwhelmed with his tape.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he actually weighs in at, right? This is the first time we've seen him since the season ended. 315 seems a little bit light. His play style would tend towards projecting as a nose tackle, as a one tech in the NFL, but 315 isn't going to cut it, you know? And so if I was someone advising Cam Young, I would tell him to bulk up a little bit, to add some weight, to really be able to just anchor in that middle. I think he has enough like sandbag ability that he can kind of hold his own in there, but for him to be a real asset in there, I think he needs to put on about 10, 15 pounds for that to really be a strength for him. I know you mentioned in the pre-show meeting we had that he never takes his eyes off the QB. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, he was very focused on the QB, trying to read his eyes, trying to make the play. I just didn't see him make a lot of plays, but he had the right idea, you know. And I do want to say this too. Do you have any idea what his arm length is by any chance? I actually thought maybe he had short arms. It looked that way when some of the bigger linemen got hands on him. I was kind of like, man, he's got fingertips, but he really can't come in there and reach all the way. And
Yeah, I saw that too. And a part of that, I think it is he exposes his chest right away to linemen, right? He has one move. It's going straight forward. He's just going to try to shoot the gap as a bigger guy on the interior. You know, it's hard to really actually get pressure. He's less of a pocket mover and more of just like a pocket pusher, if that makes sense.
right.
He's not defeating linemen so much as just like trying to forklift them into the backfield, and that doesn't always work, especially at the next level. So it'll be interesting. But I did appreciate his motor, and so he has the desire. But I think he needs to refine his techniques in order to make it at the next level.
All right, let's go into the edge class. We're going to be covering 4 guys. So we're going to talk about Isaiah Foskey, Will McDonald, Ali Gay, and Zach Harrison. Let's start off with Will McDonald, if you could. The lineman coming out of Iowa State, 6'3", 236. A bit on the lighter side, small guy here, but he does a really good job at being shifty. On that play that you just saw on the screen there, he moves across 2 separate linemen to make the tackle on the play. So he's very slippery, great at staying on his feet, and he made the play at the line. Not a lot of power. He is light. Here you're going to see something similar here. Goes inside. He has 2 guys on him. He's just slippery. And it's very noticeable, too, that it takes more than one lineman to contain him, which I really did like to see that. So I'm not really sure he's much of a playmaker, but he's clearly has really great technique. Just needs to add on that strength there. So 6'3", 236, 23 tackles, 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. We love the frame. He likes to chase. His great hand technique. But again, he can't just place himself. He's not a sandbag. He's got stiff hips too. So do you have any words on Will McDonald here?
Yeah, so you love that he's 6'3", right? That's usually about, it's kind of on the lower end, but it's in that ideal range for pass rushers. He can be a little bit bendy, which is good. I mean, it's not like a super like sleek bend, but he can get around the corner. It's just, and you know, he hits that outside hip of the offensive tackle very quickly, and so he has the speed element. And you've seen guys with similar frames like this. I think Odafe Owe, I think, is roughly the same frame as that. So you've seen guys like this test very well. And you've seen guys like this actually take a little bit of time to develop in the NFL because they do need to put on that weight, like you mentioned. But you know, with that bend around the corner, he has a good amount of hand technique. So he has a lot of tools that you like. It's just that like you wish he was a little bit smoother coming around the corner, in that he, you know, the buzzword these days, like ankle flexion and all that stuff, right? And so his tight hips make it so that put a lot more strain on his ankles there. And so yeah, you wish that he could hold up a little bit better in the run, which I think will come a little bit with putting on that extra weight. But yeah, he's a little thin right now, and so I'd imagine that most NFL teams are looking at him as a 3-4 outside linebacker only. I think even front off defenses are going to struggle to put him on the field unless it's like 3rd and 19 or something.
Yeah, that size too. So you think that he's not going to be an early pick. I just, because he's going to take time to develop no matter what. Like at that frame, you need to take time to put the weight on properly, put it on so you can keep the athletic level the same type. You don't want him blowing up 20 pounds in 1 month. Like that's gonna be terrible. But
Yeah.
let's get on to your next guy. Let's talk about Ali.
Yeah, so talk about a guy that, had a roundabout way of getting to college, right? This is a guy who took the deep route and eventually had a lot of exciting but so it took a long time to get there. He did a lot of splash plays, but wasn't really productive. It wasn't really showing up in the stat sheet. I think he's a very fundamentally sound guy. And he has like that frame and the size and speed that you want from an edge rusher like that. And I think that he has the requisite athleticism to go along with the walk off the bus type size, right? And so I'm really excited to see whether a team takes a chance on him and how soon he goes, because I think with some development, he can be one of those guys. This is not a video edit. That game against Florida was very foggy. In case anyone missed that game, but he's a really interesting player. 2.5 sacks this year, right? That you wouldn't expect someone to be that exciting with just those numbers: 17 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. But at 6'6", 265, he has NFL ready size. And the speed to go along with it. And just some of the ways you saw in a couple of those clips, the way he scrapes down that line in run support, really solid. And he's never he gives up the edge sometimes when he's pass rushing, but when he reads run, he doesn't give up that edge super easily. And I think there needs to be a little bit of improvement. He doesn't have a power move yet. It's all speed, and he has an okay spin. He gets around the corner pretty decently, but he doesn't have like a long arm or like a bull rush yet. And he has the frame to be able to do it. And so if someone can teach him how to do that effectively, I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, we've seen guys succeed in the NFL with just the speed rush, right? Bosa in many ways, Micah in a lot of ways as well, although, sometimes he throws into offensive linemen, off their feet. But, there are guys that primarily rely on that speed rush. You just need to be able to do the power rush at times. And so if he can develop, kind of like a pitcher, right? You want them to develop the third pitch in the minor leagues before they come up, right? And so this is kind of the same thing where he has a couple moves here. If he can develop a power rush that can, be not, it doesn't even have to be a plus pitch, right? It can just be something that he can throw in there every once in a while. I think he'll be really.
Let's head on over to Notre Dame. Let's talk about the edge, Isaiah Foskey, a guy that's mock draft between the 1st and 2nd round pretty consistently. I want to talk about his size to start off. 6'5", 265. That is ideal NFL size. He already has that. He's 23 tackles for 11 sacks and 1 forced fumble. So you got to love the production profile. He's got those nice long arms, so he's going to have good measurables coming into the combine and all that stuff like that. But let's talk about his weaknesses. He seems to be a one-trick pony. He has one tool in his tool belt, but he definitely exudes all this potential and all this talent. So hopefully they can develop him to become more than just this one-trick pony. But if he can't develop more, I'm afraid this is going to be the defensive version of Sky Moore, who had the same exact release package for every single route he ran. Barnabas, do you have any opinion about Isaiah Foskey here?
Yeah, I will say his one move is actually very good, right? It's a very plus long arm move where he, Dane Brugler talks about it all the time as well. He has that one move where he, stiff arms almost the tackle, and it converts his speed into a little bit of power, and then he uses his speed to get around the corner there. So it's been very effective, not just this past year, but the years before. He's been fairly productive his entire career. against pretty top tier talent. And so I think it's interesting to see. He has a roughly similar build to the other guy we just talked about, Ali Gay. But I think Foskey is probably a little bit stronger. And granted, he's one-dimensional in his pass rushing, but his against the run, he's been pretty solid for a pretty solid defense overall as well. And so he trusts his teammates, and he can pinch down that edge when he needs to. So I think it'll be interesting. I think the first round's probably a little too rich for me, but we'll see. It only takes one team to like him, so we'll definitely see where he goes.
All right, let's head on over to Zach Harrison.
Yeah, so this is a guy that I've been watching. I think Zach Harrison, I think he's really at his best when he's crashing down on the tackle and getting to those interior runs. Like half of these clips that I pulled are just him, coming down from the edge and down. It was interesting to see, but he's listed at 6'6", 272. I think he bulks up. He could bulk up a little bit and maybe play even 3 tech if he really needed to. But I think really he projects best as a 5 tech here, or maybe lose a little bit more weight and get a little bit faster and play defensive end on the even front. But he has 1 interception even, and you can see with that big old long arms that that he gets in passing lanes. It lost forced fumbles. Obviously, this Ohio State defense wasn't as good recently as we expected them to, but I really think he has a good fundamental grasp of what his responsibilities are. His weaknesses might be that, like I talked about, we're not really sure what he is yet. He's not a astounding pass rusher. Granted, 2 of those 3.5 sacks are against Maryland, where he closed out the game by single-handedly beating Jalen Duncan. So, he has that ability, but we didn't see it very often. And I wonder if we're suffering from the same problem we had with Randy Gregory, where coaches are asking him to get off a little bit late, and as a run read release. And so that might be affecting his pass rush numbers and such. But if once he settles into a role, I think he is able to go up or down in weight. And if he does that, I think he can settle into a role nicely. And I think a defensive coordinator will be excited to see what they can mold him into.
I got a question here for you. Talking about identity crisis, do you think that because of this, defensive coordinator is going to look at him more from a measurable standpoint, like what his combine is, and then decide what they're going to do with him, or do you think it's going to be technique based?
I think it's just going to be on what system they run, frankly, and team needs. I think he's going to test very well. Even at 272, I think he'll be sub 5 seconds easily. But I don't know if he runs in the 4.7s, maybe he can be more of an edge rusher. And I think he's going to put up great numbers on the bench, the way he pinches down those offensive tackles. So I think, I don't think the testing numbers are going to affect him that much, but I think it'll be more on what defensive coordinator just falls in love with that skill set.
Talking about these 5s and 4.7s, it's almost as fast as Kyron Williams.
Yeah, he might be able to run him down from behind.
Yeah, let's go on to linebackers. Why don't you start us off? You're talking about Aubrey Miller Jr.
Yeah, so Jackson State in the house, right? He is a dense 6'2", 225 pounds. But he was a productive guy, 40 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. You can tell from this picture, he is a sturdy boy, and basically a walking hit stick. They're just almost every play he's getting up and just flexing on them because he's just hit them so hard. And part of the reason he can do that is his closing speed is phenomenal. Once he's like a heat-seeking missile. As soon as he locks on, he's going and he's going to hit him hard. I think though, it's just limited to his closing speed. I don't think he has the long speed to cover tight ends. He's no Fred Warner by any means. And I think his processor is a little bit late too. So once he locks on, he can get going, but it takes a little bit of time to lock on. I think that he has the potential to definitely latch onto a team for like special teams. He seems like a team leader type, and obviously he played for Deion Sanders, so he's been around at least someone who's experienced NFL coaching, and so it'll be interesting to see. I think he's probably a mid day 3 type guy, but I saw a lot of traits that a coordinator might like, and someone like a special teams coordinator might step in and say, I want this guy. And so definitely someone that's interesting to keep tabs on, and a smaller school guy, because these guys don't get as much attention as maybe the Foskies of this world.
No, it's rare to see HBCUs get represented too. And that guy looked like he had no
Absolutely.
neck, by the way. There was no neck guard, and he still looked like he had no neck in that
Yeah,
uniform.
I would appreciate a neck guard. At least Leighton Vander Esch has a neck guard, even though he doesn't have a neck, except for the one that is always injured. But anyway.
Right, right. Let's head on over to Dorian Williams. 6'2", 225, very productive here with 81 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions. That Tulane defense tore up USC. I can't really say they tore up, but they kept them in check, which is amazing. It was one of the more exciting G5 schools out here. His strengths here is that he has a massive wingspan, it's a quick trigger, and he's just going to be a special teams day is probably the next level. I mean, you kind of talked about the Jackson State guy and what he lacked as a processor, and that's at the HBCU level. This is also G5 level. So these guys are both looking to be special teamers. Weaknesses here are going to be just straight line athlete, not a lot of lateral movement there, and a small frame. Talk to me about Dorian Williams.
Yeah, the first thing you notice on this guy, so I looked it up. The measurements for Dorian Williams and Aubrey Miller are identical, but you can tell from these pictures they are very different players, right? Dorian Williams just looks like a condor out there. His arms are massive. And so it'll be interesting to see. He gets in passing lanes just because his arms are so long, kind of Tremaine Edwards-esque at times. But he's not quite as thick. He's a little bit, for that frame, you kind of want him to be a little bit taller, but he played all 4 special teams for Tulane. He was just all over the place. And I think this is the kind of guy that someone's going to fall in love. And I think that he's more likely to get on the field on defense than Aubrey Miller. But he's just, this Tulane defense was very good. Granted, a lot of it was team defense, but it was a very good team. And by all accounts, he was one of the team leaders. And so I'm interested to see where it lands, because we've seen guys like who is it, Malcolm Rodriguez with the Lions latch on as a special teamer and then find some productive time on the field on defense as well. So I think Dorian Williams has the ability to latch onto a team in a similar fashion.
Do you think that he could develop into like a coverage linebacker for tight ends, or not that type of athlete?
I think he's more of a zone guy. He's got those long arms, but I think he struggles to change directions when it's not forward.
Right.
I think that he can quick trigger out into the flat, and it'll be and he hits hard, obviously, and those long arms help him get hit. Even if it's an arm tackle, he can get him down with those long arms. So I think that kind of fits more his style. The coverage linebacker type, I wish he was, and I'd be happy to be proven wrong. But I think he's more of a rundown type guy, just like a more athletic, new age kind of a faster guy.
All right, let's go to cornerbacks here. We're going to start off with Kai Blue Kelly, cornerback from Stanford, first team all name. I'll tell you that. That's a pretty cool name. Anyway, got some tape here from USC. He's covering Mario Williams here, but anyway, he disrupts the screenplay. He's a physical cornerback, but he's not really that great in coverage. I do want to say that he definitely favors to make up stuff with athleticism rather than technique. And you're going to see here on the next play, he's going to get torched for that exact same reasoning. He comes up, he's going to and then he's just blown by. He's not as good as an athlete as he thinks he is. I don't know. That sounds so terrible. But anyway, Kai Blue Kelly. Anyway, he's physical. He wants to be hands on. He likes to play press coverage. He's just not that good in coverage, and that's kind of what I'm worried about here. So I think he's going to test well physically on the combine, but it really depends on how NFL wants to develop him. So 6'1", 188, 26 tackles, 6 pass defended. He's a Mike Leach like in man. Physical, aggressive, talked about that. Short area quickness, again, not long speed. We just saw him get torched. Weaknesses, cheated direction, and he's just susceptible to double moves. So again, I think as a CB, he's not great in coverage, but he's always looking to make the big play. It kind of reminded me like the mindset of like Trayvon Diggs, who always wanted to play like who wanted to undercut routes, which isn't great, but like I think that's he's always looking to make the big play. Like he wants to be the star. So, but I do think that leaves him making some pretty big mistakes here and there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's bad in coverage. I definitely think he's bad in zone. I think he's very sticky when it comes to man. When he doesn't have to look at anything else, when he's just looking at his one receiver, I think he's fine. I think he's really good, and that physicality and aggressiveness really helps him. I think he has the short area quickness and the feet to kind of keep up with one guy, but I don't think he has the eyes or the processing to keep track of more than one receiver at a time. And so his role might be as just someone's shadow, where he is going to follow maybe the second or third receiver that they want to take away. I don't know that he's covering the Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams types of this world, but he can definitely come into his own with a special role. And I think he might be big enough that he could hit kind of like in a Jimmy Ward type situation as well down the line. I don't think he has those ability yet, but I think someone can develop that in him.
I think only two defenses run majority man left in the NFL. I haven't really checked this year's stats, haven't really did all the math, but I know 2 years ago it was only the Patriots and the Saints that run man coverage over 50% of the time.
Which is funny, right? Because I think his old teammate Paulson Adebo ended up on the Saints, right? And I turned
Yeah.
on Kai Blue Kelly's tape expecting to see a similar type of player, which Paulson Adebo was a cover three guy all through and through. And somehow he got to the NFL and suddenly was a man coverage guy, and everyone was like surprised. And I think Kai Blue Kelly can have a similar effect, except he's starting as a man guy. I don't see the zone coverage with him, and so it'll be interesting to see. But I was expecting a Paulson Adebo type, and they're kind of opposite players.
Yeah, I watched a lot of his last year tape going against Drake London because Drake London's physical, right? He wasn't really, in my opinion, he wasn't a route runner. He likes to push off the top of his routes, which is the exact style of play that Kyle Blue Kelly likes to do. Like he likes to be physical and stuff. Watching his matchup against Drake London was actually extremely entertaining because I know me and you don't like defensive film as much as offensive film. It's a little bit bland, but that one was good, and he held Drake London to 4 for 68 and one, which doesn't sound like a good receiving line, but if you saw him torment the Pac-12, that's a pretty good receiving line to hold him to. But
Yeah, I mean Drake London's that basketball type, right? He just wants to post up on people all day, and if someone who's listed at 6'1" can keep up with that, then there's something to be said there, right?
absolutely. Let's go on to Jay Ward.
Yeah, so he's listed as a defensive back for me. I just tried to label him as a former Oregon. He's a big guy, but I mean, he's measurable in the ball. He's always around the ball. So, and he covers both. He plays a little bit of speed, and he started out as a corner. I think he does a fine job staying in the league, even against people like Devontae Smith and stuff. And so I really like the way he plays his defense. He lines up all over the place. He makes overhand, makes block, makes safety, so he's basketball great. And he's always working the big play, right? This is one almost 190, 40 tackles, one interception, 4 passes defended, including that one you just saw where that ended in an interception. So I think he has good size, and obviously the versatility of where he can line up. He's not quite Isaiah Simmons level of versatility. That's probably the top echelon of where you can move around a defender. But he can play some corner, some safety, inside, outside. I think he has all that ability, and I think he does a really good job of managing his cushion. He knows he has some athletic limitations, and I think he understands how to overcome those by picking his spots. But I love the way that he just crashes and gives up his entire body for the run. There was one hit in there where he just gave up his entire body, just hit the quarterback, just flying through. And that may draw some penalties, but it's the type of attitude that defensive coaches love, where they're just willing to a defensive back that's willing to stick his nose into everything. Like you saw on tape, he's a little bit lean. 190 at 6'2" is a little bit light. He probably is bulking up during this pre-draft process, and he could probably be a little bit looser in the hips if he refines his technique a little bit. That'll help with his cushion management even more, and coverage skills probably both up close and far away.
Yeah, you cannot teach aggression. So it's kind of nice to see these young men get that. 'Cause you can kind of rein them in, but you can't really teach aggression. And I do want to say, I noticed that
Absolutely.
you picked a lot of LSU players, even though we introduced the show as picking small school guys. I'm just saying, picking
Hey,
two out of
LSU had a great season this year, but frankly, we didn't start the season thinking they were going to be what they
no.
ended up being, and so and especially that defense is they're always generating great players. Obviously, Jay Ward wasn't someone that wore that number 7 for them, that legendary number, but he's a good player and he played for a long time and he even switched positions, and so I think he's one of those guys that will stick around. And we didn't, I don't know about you, I had a very low grade on someone like Cordell Flott last year, also out of LSU, and he was wearing that legendary 18, I believe. And he ended up on the Giants and actually ended up contributing a fair amount on defense as well. And so you just never know with these LSU guys, and they called LSU DBU for a reason, right?
Yeah, I was surprised at some of the rookies that became instant impacts in the NFL. The Patriot corners that they both drafted, Marcus Jones and the USC guy that used to be USC, went to Arizona State. Drawing a blank on him. It's another Jones. I swear it's another Jones.
Yeah, it is Jones. I forget his first name.
But both those guys contributed right away for the Patriots, so I was pretty excited about that. I'll tell you that. But anyway, let's go on
Marcus
to
Jones
our.
played some offense too, right?
Oh
So,
yeah, that one touchdown
yeah.
pass. Everyone was mad for fancy for that. All right, let's talk about Darius Rush from South Carolina. Big man Darius Rush, 6'2", 228 tackles for 1 forced fumble, 2 interceptions, and 7 passes defended. It doesn't really show in this picture, but this is a big man. I mean, he's gonna put up numbers on that bench press. We'll tell you that right now. He's gonna have great measurables. He's strong at the catch point. I mean, it is hard to out physical Darius Rush. I almost said Cam Smith there, his teammate. He's a smooth athlete. He's not really a sudden guy. He also has high hips too. He's a physical player. Watching his tape was a little bit odd because clearly he wasn't the CB1 on his own team. It's going to be Cam Smith. But he does have his own skill set. He's just going to be a real physical player. I don't know. I kind of feel like it was like Kaibu Kelly, but like less athleticism, but more strength. Barnabas, what do you think about Darius Rush here from South Carolina?
Yeah, I saw a guy that was, fairly decent in zone. It was weird because, really, like you said, Cam Smith was matching up in man against their opponent's best receiver, and so they almost were required to run these split coverages where they were running man on one side and zone on the other, just to account for both of these strengths. So it was really interesting. I thought, that South Carolina defense played a lot better than I thought they were going to coming to the season. And you know, you had these two different players, right? Like I said, I expected Paulson Adebo when I put on Kai Blue Kelly, just because I don't watch that much Stanford football. Darius Rush might be similar to that Paulson Adebo type. So he's a zone type guy. Obviously, most teams in the NFL are moving towards that zone model. So I think there's definitely a fit somewhere. And these South Carolina DBs are, coming out. We know about the Stephon Gilmores and stuff, but someone like Izzy Mukwamu too, who was that one of those zone guys, converted
JC
corner to
Horn too was
safety.
yeah.
Yeah, JC
JC
Horn's
Jones.
from South Carolina too.
JC Jones.
Yeah, so yeah,
I
so
said the
there's
wrong
a
name.
lot.
JC Jones. I
So yeah,
got
we've seen
Patriots
a
on my
lot of these
mind, but
South
yeah.
Carolina corners come out recently, with J.C. Horn. We know about the old guys like Stephon Gilmore, but someone like Izzy Mukwamu, who is one of those zone guys, converted corner, went out to safety for a while for South Carolina. I think he's a similar role in that. I think he has some role as like a safety. He's not quite as big as Izzy Mukwamu, obviously, but he has maybe some safety conversion potential. Could just be a zone cover three zone corner. He's 6'2", so I imagine he's kind of measuring at over 30-inch arm length. So that lends itself to some cover three and such. I see a role for him definitely in the NFL.
Let's head on over to a guy. I don't want to mess up his name. Let's talk about Mr. Wright.
Oh, Rajon Wright. I love these connections. BJ Ojulari, the edge rusher from LSU, his brother is Aziz. Well, Rajon Wright's brother is former also Oregon State corner Nashawn Wright. So he comes from those NFL bloodlines. He followed a lot of the same narrative as his brother. They went to the same junior college together, and they both committed to Oregon State. His cousin also plays for Oregon State, is also DB over there. But let's look at Rajon though. 24 tackles, 2 interceptions, 9 passes defended. 6'2", 200 pounds. That is a cover 3 corner. Just that's what he is, and that's what his brother was as well, right? He's got length for days, just his arms all over the place. We talked about Dorian Williams. I think Rajon Wright probably has a similar wingspan when it comes down to it. If not, it's because he doesn't have quite as wide of a torso, and he just plays so aggressively, and he's just a great corner. He's going to run and hit at the catch point. I liked watching Oregon State. Obviously, they're kind of a grinded out type of team this past year, with a guy like Damian Martinez on offense, but on defense, guys like Rajon Wright were setting the tone here. And so he's going to fit in a cover 3 defense, and teams, a lot of cover 3 teams in the NFL these days. So they're all going to be looking at a guy like Rajon Wright. His weaknesses is also his length, right? He's a little bit high hipped because he's so tall. He struggles to change direction sometimes, which isn't as big of a deal on those deeper zones. But maybe on some of those shallower zones, he needs to work a little bit. And obviously he can get a little bit handsy just because he doesn't quite have the long speed that you might want, especially when he has to change directions to go along with that speed. But his brother was picked at 99, so that's the pick to beat here. And let's see if Rajon Wright can go earlier.
All right. Let's get into our last position group. Let's talk about safeties, which, in my opinion, always has the best tape. Gotta love watching safeties sit in zone for about 30 minutes straight.
Yep.
Anyway, let's start off with Penn State. Let's talk about Jair Brown. 5'11", 208, a little bit on the smaller side. 56 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions, and 4 passes defended. He's versatile. I mean, he sits in zone, and I did not enjoy watching his tape. But, that's what it's supposed to be about for safeties. They don't want the ball getting thrown to them. They said they're doing the right thing. And so he was doing great in zone. Great ball production, too. Good bursts, split in field range. I thought he was really good at also doing these forced fumbles here. He seemed to, as soon as he hit the tackle, he was always going for the ball. And that's what I kind of like. That's definitely a thing that pros do a lot better than the college players do, is that they're always looking for the turnover. And again, weaknesses here, undersized. He's just a little bit small here, and he's not the best tackler. He does get thrown off sometimes, probably because of the size. But nice stout frame there. Barnabas, do you have anything to say about Jair Brown?
Not saying that they're that similar of a player, but the profile kind of reads like Tyrann Mathieu back in the day, right? Tyrann Mathieu wasn't the most sound tackler either, but he would just come up with a ball at random times. And that's kind of the same thing with Jair Brown, right? He would come up with tipped ball interceptions left and right. And it was just kind of like, how is this guy getting the ball? He's also a little bit undersized. So that profile read like that to me. But if you watch the tape, they're obviously very different players. Yeah, I mean, good zone player. I don't think he can play single high, but I think he's definitely a 2 high safety. I think he has enough burst and enough range to cover that. But like you said, safety tape can get a little boring. And so other than his tipped ball interceptions and his fumbles and such, like you said, you can't teach aggression. So I think he has that. I think he has starting ability, but I wonder whether that size speed combo. I don't know that he runs particularly fast during this combine process and such. So I'll be interested to see how he matches up in Mobile against some of these receivers, because we don't have a lot of speed here, so it might be a time for him to shine here.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these safeties is going to be a big event for them, because again, it's hard to watch their tape, but now they're going to be forced to. Don't they force them to do DB drills too, right, over there in Mobile? The safeties have to play DB. Yeah, so that's going to be kind of fun to see. Let's go on to your guy, the very last we're talking about, Kayvon Merriweather.
Yeah, so I will say this, right? It's one thing to watch safety sit back in zone the entire game. It's another thing when you have these just crazy linebackers sitting in front of you. There were a couple plays I was watching these Iowa linebackers move in unison in front of Kayvon Merriweather, and Iowa's contesting for linebacker U at this point. They've had the Neiman brothers come out, Josie Jewell, and a bunch of guys. The Neiman brothers, of course, of Sycamore High School fame. For those who know, they know. But so it's one thing because there are multiple plays where you see these linebackers read and react in unison. It's almost like watching Madden where the players all react all at once, because these linebackers in lockstep. So it is a little bit easier to play safety behind those types of guys. But let's talk about Kayvon Merriweather, who has a little bit of a basketball background. So he's a little bit bigger for a safety at 6'2", 225. He had 36 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 3 interceptions, 3 passes defensed. Obviously, it was a great Iowa defense. I will say one thing: he is always assignment sound, almost to a fault at times. I think he understands generally what's going around him, but there are times where he just tunnels in on the guy that he knows he has to be covering, and that sometimes leads to him not being able to tackle the ball carrier because he's still focused on the guy that he's covering in coverage. So I think there's a little bit of tunnel vision going on there, but he's definitely a smooth athlete. I don't know that he runs that fast. I saw probably like 4.5 speed, which is fine. It's good, but it's not like anything outstanding. I think he's very smooth in the way he moves. He can change direction very easily. You see that basketball hip sync when he moves around, and so I think his testing numbers probably don't come out as great as you might like, but he's just going to be solid. And Iowa defensive players come out with a good understanding of how to play football, and that's kind of one of the more important things of getting rookies acclimated to the NFL. And so I think he's a quick transition guy, but I think that it would have to take a specific type of coordinator who doesn't care as much about testing numbers to get him on the team.
Do you think that he's like comparable to, like, again, Patriot fan here, but Kyle Duggar? Like, you think they're similar players?
No. So Kyle Duggar was a bigger, I think even bigger than Kayvon Merriweather, and he was like a hard hitter coming out of college.
Yeah.
I actually think he's a lot like his former teammate Geno Stone on the Ravens, right? Like someone like that, where it's just like solid assignment sound, not spectacular athletically, but he's going to do his job. And oftentimes that's all it takes in the NFL.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us today. And in a perfect world where we have unlimited time and resources, we would love to cover every single player in the entire draft, let alone the Senior Bowl. But we look forward to seeing these players in person and talking to a few of them. And we do want you guys to know that we will be live 6 p.m. Eastern time every single day during the Senior Bowl. It's just going to be me and Barnabas, open discussion, talking about our notes, about what we saw at the practices each day. And we're going to answer and take any question that you guys have as the audience, and just let you guys know our honest opinions about these players we saw that day.
Yeah, Mike and I will be furiously scribbling notes on notepads out there. We'll be, studying harder than we've ever studied in school. And so I don't know about you, Mike. I did poorly in school. So this will be, I will be studying harder than anyone has ever seen me study. So it'll be great. But yeah, we look forward to seeing anyone that might be watching this video at Mobile, any fellow analysts. We love obviously interacting and networking out there. And we'd love to talk to you in Mobile or wherever you might run into either of us or any of the C2C staff in the wild. So until next time, we'll see you soon, guys.
Peace.